It's just me against the world.
Hey, what is up, Walnut Grove? My name is Emery, the ShakurCast, where I fangirl about some of my favorite stars of rap and hip-hop. Feeling a bit under the weather today, and I just ate a big old dinner that made me super tired. There's some chicken Alfredo, fried chicken, some biscuits, all that. But that don't matter. That's just trying to explain why I might sound a little less lively than I usually do. As always, your attendance is appreciated. Once you get comfortable, let's get some sweet tea this time to go with that fried chicken and some earplugs, because today I'm going to get annoying about the lo-fi godfather Nujabes. Before we get into it, thank you over to the people at Silver Sky Woodworking for sponsoring the ShakurCast and Viridian News. Because of you guys, we can do what we do, so thank you. Jun Seba, later known by his stage name Nujabes, which is just his name flipped around backwards, was born on February 7th, 1974 in the Nishiazabu district of Minato in central Tokyo, Japan. Coincidentally, this is the exact same day that American producer J Dilla was born. Both J Dilla and Nujabes are known for creating the sounds that would later become the lo-fi hip-hop genre. Not much is known about his childhood, but we do know he had a great interest in music. In fact, very little is known about Seba's personal life because he had only really given one interview his entire life. Most of what is known comes from his colleagues and friends. He did some minor DJ work for the Tokyo area and owned 2 record stores in Tokyo named T Records and Guinness Records. His earliest known music production was a remix of the Nas song One Love, which he displayed alongside Nas music so that enjoyers of the New York rapper might pick up his record, not really knowing what it is, and get hooked on Seba's sound and style. In 1998, he started the record label Hideout Productions, which would sign the talents of many of his future collaborators and friends such as Uyama Hiroto and Pace Ride. He released his first album titled Metaphorical Music in 2003 to great success. His sound was unique as he blended aspects of jazz and soul with hip-hop and rap, creating nostalgic and atmospheric beats. The album has a melancholic and relaxing sound, blending jazz and hip-hop in an exciting and ethereal way, whether it be the upbeat saxophones on the opening track Blessing It, the hypnotic guitar loop on Lady Brown, or the sleepy piano on Letter from Yokosuka. This album is a colorful journey from start to finish. In that same year, he created Hideout Records' first compilation album featuring the likes of American MC Apani B, Japanese-American rapper Shingo 2, among others. These 2 productions would put Nujabes' name on the map, but there was still more to come. In 2004, Japanese anime Samurai Champloo was released. It was the story of 2 ronin as they accompanied a young girl on a quest across feudal Japan as they searched for the samurai that smelled like sunflowers. The show blends ancient Japan with modern hip-hop culture, featuring graffiti, freestyling, breakdance, and of course, hip-hop music itself. While this combination may seem unusual, it actually works really well. Samurai Champloo happens to be one of my favorite shows. Nujabes helped produce the soundtrack and greatly elevated the show's quality. There was an amazing song for any kind of scene, whether it be a somber, rainy goodbye, a goofy altercation between 2 characters, or an epic battle scene. The show's main theme, Battle Cry, was created by Nujabes and Shingo 2, and if you've been on TikTok for more than 5 minutes, you may recognize the instrumental playing in the background titled Aurorian Dance, which was also produced for Samurai Champloo. I greatly recommend the show if you're a fan of feudal Japan, rap culture, comedy, or action, because it has plenty of it. The animation is also really great for its time, and if you're a fan of Cowboy Bebop, the same man who created Cowboy Bebop, Watanabe, created this show, and personally, I feel like this show outbeats Cowboy Bebop. Nujabes released his next album titled Modal Soul on November 11, 2005. The album would be widely regarded to be his magnum opus. The sound that he established with his previous albums both expanded upon and improved with this record, blending more genres such as house with, of course, hip-hop and jazz, and becoming more polished. The album's variety of genres would be nearly impossible to pull off for anyone besides Nujabes, but every track fits the album's theme very well, and they all work together. They're all unique, flavorful, not one sounding the same as the last. The album also features 7 different vocalists, such as soul singer Terry Collier, or American MC Substantial, once again, Shingo 2. This album is truly a highlight in music, with so many different genres and atmospheres all being cooked into the perfection that is the musical cuisine that is Moto Soul. This album is a must for anyone, and I cannot stress that enough. On February 26, 2010, Nujabes experienced a brutal car accident late in the evening in Tokyo. He later died in a hospital in the Shibuya ward. In that moment, hip-hop lost one of its greatest minds. There never was and never will be another producer like Jun Seba. His music touched the hearts and souls of countless, and he was taken before his prime even began. He would never know how influential and popular his music would become. Had he lived, there's no telling what kind of amazing music he would have created and how far he would go. He never saw the age of social media, but it's social media that keeps his legacy alive as more and more people discover his music, including myself. I discovered his music on TikTok about 6 months ago, and I knew immediately that he would be one of my favorite artists, and he is, being within my top 3. The underground hip-hop world was touched by his death, especially Shingo too, one of his closest friends. A few months after Seba's death, an instrumental was discovered on his cell phone. This will later be used in the compilation album titled The Lovesick Hexology. Shing and Nujabes developed the series together. In an interview, he said he dedicated the series to the goddess of music. The tape features honest looks into themes such as love, loss, and reunion. The first 3 parts were featured on previous works of Seba's, and parts 4 and 5 were created before his death. Part 5 in particular is an exceptionally sad track with a somber and melancholic tone. When creating the instrumental, Seba first rejected the idea from Shing, saying it was too dark, but eventually came around. At first, Shing began to write the lyrics about recently deceased beatboxer Jeff Resurrection, but after Seba's death, he dedicated the song to both of them. The song begins with deep, painful lyrics about losing a loved one, featuring lyrics such as, "Till death do us part," and "It did." But as it progresses, it moves towards beginning to heal, with a slight hopefulness in Shing's words, describing it as a leap of faith. The track ends in a sampled applause with the words, "Thank you kindly, my friends." Part 6, called the Grand Finale, feels like a bittersweet send-off to that lost loved one, thus the title Grand Finale. It's a simple song, featuring a looping orchestral sample that sounds heavenly, which is appropriate for the song. It's confident and feels like Shing is looking back on his friendship with Jun Seba with happiness, thankful that he got that time with him. It tearfully completes the arc from the previous part. While there are times where he sounds reluctant to let go, he understands that he has to. This song is the one that features the instrumental found on Nujabes' phone after his passing, and as the song ends, Shing says, "Gotta finish what we started, so I cut this tape, as our records will stay on rotate." He takes it upon himself to finish what him and Nujabes started together as a tribute to his friend, but as all things do, he cuts the tape, ending the Lovesick Hexology and essentially his work with the late producer. He acknowledges that beyond his lifetime, Nujabes' life and legacy will be carried by his music, the records staying in rotate, keeping him alive. Rest in peace, Nujabes. Welcome back to the Absolutely Correct Album Ranking, the part of the show where I absolutely and correctly rank albums out of an artist's discography. This is my personal opinion. This is how I like to rank the albums based on how much I enjoy them. If you have a different opinion, good on you. Go get yourself a cookie, because this is my album ranking. Before we get started, though, I just wanted to mention that I'm mainly focusing on Nujabes' soul discography, like his main one, because I couldn't find clear copies of the Samurai Champloo soundtrack online without going to some sort of shady, sketchy website, and I also just didn't have enough time to listen to 4 hours of soundtrack music, but there are definitely worthy tracks to listen to, such as Who's Theme and Aurorian Dance, which is possibly his most popular song in his entire discography. Definitely give those a listen to. At the bottom, I have Spiritual State. I failed to touch on Spiritual State in the educational part of the show because I want to really draw emphasis on the Lovesick Hexology, but Spiritual State is the album that released a year after his death and features some beats that were never used and is almost like a final send-off by his co-workers and friends over at Hideout Productions. It's a very solid album. It feels a lot like a polished metaphorical music, but in a way that is not on the level of Modal Soul, and it feels very somber. There are a lot of plenty of great songs on the album, such as City Lights and Yes, and Dawn on the Other Side, and I would highly recommend the album. It just happens to fall towards the bottom. And next we have his first album, Metaphorical Music. Metaphorical Music was an amazing first attempt at what he does, and it really established his sound. It features not only some of my favorite songs by Nujabes, but some of my favorite songs in general, such as Lady Brown and Blessing It. It's unique, and even within Nujabes' discography, it's unique. Even though Modal Soul polished the sound, part of the fact that it's not as polished is what makes it so nice to listen to, and it really takes you on an adventure. Next, the second album and the last album that he worked on in his lifetime, Modal Soul. I already talked enough about Modal Soul during the educational part, but I cannot recommend this album enough. This album was the first album I listened to by Nujabes, and I remember just sitting in my bed listening to it for about the entire duration of the album, and I would have this album on loop for days and weeks afterwards, just by itself, with feel-good tracks like World's End Rhapsody to songs like Flowers that really they're great to just sit and think to. Songs such as Feather and Lovesick Part 3. Feather is why I looked up Nujabes, because I really liked the song when I heard it in the edit on TikTok, and so I looked up the album that it was on and I found Nujabes, and it was an amazing choice. The song is amazing. Lovesick Part 3 is probably my favorite song on the album, but nonetheless every other song is great. And finally, I have the Lovesick Hexology. Not as many people like this one over Modal Soul as I do, but this album means a lot to me just because of many different themes it touches on. Part 1 is just a feel-good, it's a thud. It's a really good song just to do anything to. And it sets up the entire series. It's not as conversational as Part 2, and the beat in Part 2 feels like a calmer, more settled down version of the one in Part 1. But I really appreciate both of those. Part 2 seems to be a favorite of the fans. Part 2, 3, and 6 seem to be favorites, but Part 2 happens to actually be my least favorite on the album, not because it's a bad song, but just because I happen to like it better. Part 3 has a great message, and it feels ethereal. It talks about, it's less conversational, it's more free. It's about doing what you want to do. It's chorus, and the way that the vocals and the instrumental sound almost equal in volume, you don't see that a lot, and they almost are both overwhelming, but in a way that feels nice, like being smothered by like a pillow, if that makes sense. Lovesick Part 4. Part 4 is great, and I love the play on the months of the year. I have it about as equal as Part 2. Both of those happen to be my least favorites, but that doesn't mean they're not great. Part 5 I already touched on, and it makes me really sad to hear. The first time I heard it, I just, like, I had to text somebody and be like, hey, are you still okay? Like, I want to appreciate you, I still have you. And I know that sounds like a sissy thing, but like, music has that effect on me, and this song is one that does it. And Lovesick Grand Finale is my favorite song on the album. A lot of people say it's kind of almost lame and is not a good send-off, in that it's simple, it has a simple beat, but that is the thing I appreciate about it, because you don't need to be all out to really get that feeling that Nujabes created. And just, it's such a good send-off, and Shing's words are very impactful, and I really love the song. And I failed to mention that there's a song after Grand Finale called Perfect Circle that is a lot more laid down and chill, and continues a message from Part 6 that a circle is a flawless shape, and I don't really consider it nearly as much as like important as the rest of the songs, but it's still an amazing song nonetheless, and it's a nice chill song. Anyways, enough rambling. Thank you guys for listening to me ramble about one of my favorite artists who's absolutely underrated, that's criminal. Now that the episode is over, I will be ascending into space, never to be seen again. Tune in next time while I talk about the Southern rap legends from the ATL, the dynamic duo Outkast. As always, drink water, stay safe. See y'all later.